Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Stigmeyer, and I work with the Graduate Resource Center in the School of Education and the Writing Studio at Concordia University, Irvine. Today, I'd like to share with you some information about how to improve your professional voice with tips for academic writing. When we think about academic writing, we could really talk a lot of different components. In this presentation, I want to just focus on these three: sufficient substantiation and citation, effective organization, and appropriate style and tone. So what is substantiation? It is the action of proving a statement or a justification. So when we're looking to use research in our work that is substantiating our points, we have to back up a step and look at our sources. So usually you'll hear from professors, they want you to use peer-reviewed sources. And what that means is that those articles or research studies have successfully passed the process of evaluation from peers in each field of expertise. So they're experts approving, saying this research methodology was sufficient. They look at the different elements of the study and then give their peer approval. So that's one piece that we need to look for. Another thing is we look at the type of source. And here we'll talk about primary sources first. So these are original documents or original research. So this is the first formal publication of new research. A secondary source is a work that synthesizes, summarizes, or analyzes results. So for example, an article in a journal that summarizes studies on a given topic, which could be a single mention in an article, or it could be a literature review or meta-analysis that brings together many sources. If we cite a secondary source or a primary source within our secondary source, we have the citation looks like this in APA. So what we did is we read a secondary source, Smith, 2023, and then that points us back to the primary source of Hernandez. So Smith wrote about the Hernandez study and then reported it. So we're using that secondary source only to give the information that Hernandez shared. And then what we would do with our references is only include the Smith reference, because that's the only thing that we read. And then a third type of source is tertiary. It's a work that digests or condenses information. So this could be like the APA dictionary or an encyclopedia article. So in terms of what we should use for best substantiation of our topic, we rely mostly, almost completely, on primary sources. So we go back to the original source. It doesn't mean that we just have to search for every article on our own, but when you are reading a source that refers to another work, use their reference and look that source up. Make sure that the paraphrase that you saw is how you would state it as well, and then you can actually use that primary source in your references as well. So to substantiate the claims in your paper, usually some best practices are to use up-to-date research. I like to recommend within 5 years, although that is limiting. But it's kind of important, especially for dissertations, where it may take a while for you to actually finish the dissertation. So, typical is students writing includes, sources that are maybe 10 to 15 years old. But if you kind of focus on those first 5 years, it helps, especially with a topic that changes rapidly. And we include a prevalent number of sources. So that means that within a certain paragraph, we maybe have 3 or 4 citations instead of only 1. And if we can think of this as like the preponderance of the evidence, so like you have DNA, you have eyewitness testimony, you have, I don't know, video, that's like overwhelming evidence. And so we show that in research by including all those different voices with citations in our work, and even sometimes using multiple citations, which we can include after a paraphrased or synthesized sentence showing that this concept or idea actually came from these 3 different sources, articles that I read. So that really shows that you've done your homework, you've done that background research. A very important concept to substantiate your work is to cite every claim. So according to the APA, we cite everything that's not common knowledge. So key background information, support or dispute of your thesis, and critical definitions and data. So common knowledge it can be kind of a question mark sometimes. It depends on who defines it as common, right? So think of it simply, if it's within the educational field and we refer to something like a charter school, well, we don't need to define that. Even social emotional learning, maybe if we state it as a broad opening to a paragraph, and then we get into research that supports that. But it's really important to avoid that under citation that we'll talk about soon. And then we have mostly rely on primary sources. And then with under and over citation, this means that when we undercite, we're not providing that citation for every claim. And this could conceivably lead to plagiarism. And over-citation can be distracting and unnecessary. So what do we do? Well, according to the APA, it is considered over-citation to repeat the same citation in every sense when the source and topic have not changed. So you don't put the same citation after every sentence in the paragraph. Instead, cite the source in the first sentence in which it is relevant and don't repeat it if the source hasn't changed. And this is within a single paragraph. So you want to make sure that when the next paragraph starts, you're citing again. So for example, here's a paragraph with the correct amount of citation. So Hornby and Greaves here, we have all of this information from their research study and the kind of a main idea starting the paragraph. Notice that with APA, we cite at first mention. Some students think you should put it at the very end of the paragraph, but it's kind of the opposite with APA. Then because the source hasn't changed, we don't have to cite that again in that paragraph. But if we went on to the next paragraph, continuing to use Hornby and Greaves, we would need to cite again. So let's talk about organization now. An important concept in APA and all academic or formal writing is continuity and flow. So continuity refers to consistency of expression throughout a written work. So this means that you use the same terms, the same concepts, the thematic development, all of that is consistent all the way through the work. So if you identify, this is just a simple example, if you identify an abbreviation toward the beginning of your work, say social emotional learning, you abbreviate as SEL, all caps, then what you do is you don't refer to it as social emotional learning anymore, but you consistently provide only that abbreviation. So continuity is important. Flow refers to the smooth cadence of words and sentences. So this is why we add transitions between sentences. We repeat key terms so that it's easy for the reader to, grasp on to the basic flow. So we explain our relationships between ideas clearly and present them in logical order. So think about your paper being readable, easy on the reader. And when you lack these two things, the work may seem disorganized or confusing, and details may seem incomplete or inconsistent. So one way to do this, like kind of in a practical way, is to limit each paragraph to only one topic. So when you're creating coherence within your work, you want to limit your ideas within a single paragraph to one idea, one topic. And according to the APA, there's no limit on the length of paragraphs, but I find that a typical suggestion is to use 5 to 8 sentences because your reader can become overwhelmed when it's like a full page long. And then this is a really great structure I like from the Thompson writing program called the meal plan, and it stands for these different things. So within a single paragraph, you have this basic flow. The main idea, so this is like a topic sentence, the evidence, which would include examples, quotations, and paraphrases, analysis, this explains or further describes the evidence, and then the link back to the larger claim. So for example, here's a paragraph in the meal plan structure. So we have a clear topic sentence at the beginning, and then we have 3 examples of evidence. And you can see that's easy to see because we have 3 in-text citations here. And these are specific details that support the claims presented in the main idea. And then we added a little analysis here. This can potentially limit SEL's academic benefits. And then the link here goes back to the opening. So addressing these challenges requires a focus on adapting SEL programs, et cetera. So we use this structure, and it really helps your reader to just like have not a difficult time reading and understanding the paper. The last thing I want to talk about is appropriate style and tone. So with APA, we use a direct and straightforward tone, very objective and formal. We write with the fewest words, still capturing the meaning. So we write with concision. We really try to be concise in our writing, choosing our words very carefully. And we are simple. We don't have to use big fancy words. We don't have to use different ways to say the research has shown. It's okay to just keep it simple. Shorten longer sentences and paragraphs to make it really easy on your reader and make your points succinctly. And specificity is important, so avoid vague language and be precise and exact. Word choice is also very important in this consideration. We use formal or professional vocabulary. So instead of saying write up, which is a kind of an informal phrasal verb, we might use the word report. We avoid value-laden or emotional language. So this is a good example from APA. Gerard completely overlooked the research. That's not acceptable, but if you say Gerard did not address, you can just see that more neutral, formal tone coming through. And a couple of terms that I have my eye out for is really, a lot, and just, great, all those kinds of informal words we use in conversation all the time. for just, which I use a lot in my speech, and tend to want to use in my writing, I've learned that you can use the word simply or merely in place of it to really make your voice a little more formal. Also avoid contractions. So instead of can't, use cannot. Instead of did not or didn't, use did not. So that's it. These are two books that I recommend on academic writing, and they are listed here in the references at the end of this presentation. So the first was the Swales and Feek book, Academic Writing for Graduate Students, published by the University of Michigan. And the other one was Helen Sword's Stylish Academic Writing. So I recommend that you keep working on your academic writing and always feel free to visit the Writing Studio and the OWL for direct feedback on your work. Have a great day.